Hi, Misha here, and this is a kind of comparison and commentary video I've been eager to do for a while, but life kept throwing things in the way. So I thought we would look at two very similar PDW class submachine guns from the Comblock, Eastern Europe, or rather semi-automatic only civilian legal imports of them. Of course, over here we have the Polish PM-63 Rak. This was originally produced by Circle 11, factory commonly known as Radom, and the semi-auto is built by Pioneer Arms, also in the town of Radom, and is known as the PM-63c. And over here we have the Czechoslovakian, today Czech Republic, SA Vz.61 Scorpion. And this is a semi-auto, also built in the Czech Republic by a company originally known as D-Technik, today known as Czech Small Arms. And it retains the same name of SA Vz.61. This one here, unlike the original, is chambered for 9x18 Makarov. 9mm PM. I did that because this gun is chambered for 9mm Makarov, and that's its original chambering. These are both imported as pistols, and both essentially come in more or less SBR ready, and they come in able to take standard magazines. The VZ61 was always a closed bolt design. It was also always select fire, so it's just limited to semi-auto. Pretty straightforward conversion. The PM-63 is a little more involved. This was initially in the military an open bolt, and so it took some doing to make it a legal semi-auto. These are assembled from original guns on at least partially new frames. The D-Technik VZ61s are all new production guns, with the exception of sometimes having original military grips and original military mags, but basically all new guns. These have been coming in since around 2006, initially imported by Century, today imported by Checkpoint USA, whereas these have only come in this year, 2019, although they've been teasing them for a very long time, and they are imported by PAC USA, Pioneer Arms Corp USA. And so far they are the only importers. So before we get more into the compare and contrast for these guns, let's show them both in action. Raining. Alright, done. Boy, that goes quick. PM-63. There we go. These were designed for similar but slightly different purposes in the military. The Scorpion began life around 1957 in Czechoslovakia. It was originally designed for the Ministry of the Interior. It was made as a law enforcement gun. But very soon the Army became interested. And development would take place primarily between 1959 and 1961, at which time the government would designate it as the Vzor model of 1961. And production would begin around 1963. The first run would last until about 1965. Then a second run would take place from about 1967 through 1976. And then a final run, at least major run, would be done between 1978 and 1979. In total, and they would make about 200,000 of these, give or take. And not only were they carried by law enforcement, they were also issued as kind of a substitute standard within the military for reconnaissance units, special operations units, and frankly, espionage, spy, and counterintelligence units, both within the military and government. And they would be pretty widely exported. As for the PM-63, known as the Rak, it would also start off around the same time, 1957. Its design would be delayed a bit because its initial designer would die in 1960, but his team would work on continuing with prototypes in 61 and 62, and it would be first tested and have a small pre-production batch in 1963. This was designed from the outset as what we would think of as a PDW for the military. Main production would last from 1965 through 1976 in one kind of big run with around 80,000 pistols made. So a little under half. It was exported, but not as widely. Whereas this one was kind of issued to specialists, this one was issued primarily to tank crews, other vehicle crews, artillery crews, and pretty much anyone else needing something more effective than a pistol, but less cumbersome than a full-size submachine gun. And that's kind of where we get into it. Even though these are both PDWs, they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. The Scorpion is basically a big pistol. It has a 4.5-inch barrel. It's about 10.5 inches long without its stock deployed. If it had its wire stock, it would be a little over 20 inches. As I said, it fires from a closed bolt. The bolt is internal to the frame. It is select fire. Initially, these were made in 7.65 Browning 32 Auto with a 10-round compact and a 20-round standard or extended capacity magazine. It was between 2.8 and 3.2 pounds, so relatively light. So it was not a whole lot bigger than, say, a Tokarev pistol of that day and time. Whereas the Rak over here is a little bit bigger. With the stock extended, which this does have the stock, it's just welded closed. It's a little over 23 inches. With it compacted, closed up, it's around 13 inches. We have a much longer barrel, at least relatively speaking. It's right at 6 inches long. We also have this large muzzle compensator. Spoon. This serves a couple of purposes. The sights on these are actually quite similar to each other, but again, this fires from an open bolt, even though it has more of a pistol style slide. As you see, it houses its magazine in the grip versus the Scorpion, which houses it up front, more conventional. The magazine that would be in the holster with this is also 10 rounds, same as the Scorpion. But the extended mag, the full size, is actually 25 rounds. And typically these would be issued with one 10 round and 3 25 round mags, whereas the Scorpion would be issued with one 10 and 2 20 round mags. So we had 50 rounds of 32 is common carry for this, whereas we had 85 rounds of 9mm Makarov for this. And it's a little heavier too. We're just over 3.5 pounds. So it's just a bigger, bulkier gun. But it is designed more for military field use, whereas this is more of a clandestine type gun. One thing I want to point out, ergonomics. This would originally have a very flimsy wire stock, very short. Not the best in the world. And there's no foregrip. The Rak, on the other hand, does have a more substantial stock with a longer length of pull. And it does have a foregrip that if this were not a semi-auto, you could fold down to make a vertical foregrip. So this had more thought put to it for using it two-handed and with the stock. I'm not saying the stock is perfect on this. Hey, no, far from it. But it is better than, I would say, the wire stock. By the way, this what's on the back here is the brace adapter. That said, in service, the Scorpion was the much more popular gun. It proved to be more reliable, more versatile critter. The Rak always had some issues. And they stayed in service. In fact, some are still in service to this very day. However, it was always a thing. So you kind of see this. This is on the small end of being a PDW, almost a pistol. I always thought the way the grip looks on this, it almost reminds me of a revolver. Whereas this is just almost a submachine gun. I mean, heck, the barrel is longer than, say, a micro Uzi. And getting towards the length of a mini Uzi or a Sten. Those have 7.8-inch barrels. So this is still a little bit more of a submachine gun, but which is ironic because it has more of a pistol style slide, whereas this one has more of a machine gun style bolt. Just kind of funny. But all in all, I would still give that to the Rak. Anyway, for more on the history, we have separate videos on these. I just can't help but talk about it. But what about these as semi-autos? Well, generally, both run quite well. And with that being said, let's see it again.
Rounds goes fast.
Yes, it does. PM-63.
Okay, clear.
PM-63 full mag Silver Bear. Well, I hit myself in the forehead with the casing, but otherwise good.
It didn't hit me that time. So
well, there we go.
goes with Silver Bear ammunition. Haven't had any issues with that so far.
How about hitting the target, but I hit my head with the casings?
Good.
Both open again. PM-63. I feel like I need to be in a tank.
I feel like I should have been wearing a hat.
So generally speaking, we've had good luck out of both of these guns, given that they're a submachine gun conversion. And don't have their stocks, so you don't have the full brace against your shoulder for max cycling power. Quality-wise, obviously the Scorpion is better. D-Technik is really as good as Bruno CZ ever was. For the PM-63, the original parts have typical Circle 11 FB Rightum quality. The Pioneer Arms parts have typical Pioneer Arms quality. That's not to say it's hideous. I'd still say better than a lot of Romanian stuff, but luckily this is mostly original service parts, which is a mixed blessing. On the one hand, it's always great to be original. We have the original chrome line barrel. We have the original slide with date on it. We have the original grips, stock. Really, it's all original except for the semi-auto parts, the trigger group, of course the firing pin being a closed bolt, and part of the frame. Some of the frame is the original chunk, and the other part is the semi-auto bit. Very similar to how they did the PPS-43C. The thing about using surplus parts, you do have parts that have been used. Some very lightly, some more so. But either way, they've been in the world a long time, and they are being modified from their original intent. So this will cut down on reliability, and it will also make consistency between examples of the guns different. For example, there were changes to the PM-63 over its production run, so if you get a gun built from an earlier kit, it's going to have a few different features. For example, mag release vis-a-vis one built from a later production. And of course the furniture will have some scuffs and scratches in it, so on and so forth. The Scorpion, on the other hand, be it a 32 or a Makarov, will be all new and kind of made to the same standard. So you don't have an unknown history, you don't have a lot of ambiguity. This was made as a semi-auto receiver, so you're not kind of welding two halves together. Trigger's pretty decent on these. It's not the worst in the world on these, but it's not great. It's pretty spongy. So just in terms of absolute quality, yeah, your CSA Scorpions are the better bet, but you're also losing a bit of that history. But these are both true imports. And neither one have been 100% reliable, which frankly is to be expected with a gun or guns like these. Take a look. Failure of some kind. It is a brand. Trigger didn't reset that one time. Yeah. That'd be a mag deal.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe it. Can't remember if I don't think I chambered. Okay.
Go ahead.
There we go. This guy hadn't been shot in a while. Never know. Old grease, maybe. I'll keep an eye on it. Did it again.
You got one in there?
Seems to be. Let's see.
Huh.
Okay.
You're good? Same issue?
Yeah.
Whoa!
It's okay.
So it's like the fire control, the hammer got hung up or something, didn't it?
What it's doing, it didn't quite close.
Oh.
And so when I pulled it back there, it let the hammer go. When the bolt came back, the hammer rode it forward.
Whew.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Same thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not quite closing sometimes. That's odd. PM-63.
First jam?
Yep, a little stovepipe.
Okay.
Ready?
Go ahead.
There we go.
Okay.
PM-63.
Nope, had one jam.
Same kind of little stovepipe.
Just didn't quite chamber.
Gotcha.
I'm wondering if that one was a little weak.
Could be.
Okay.
PM-63. That was fun. I think it picked that one up.
It did, looks like it.
Yep.
Yep, live round.
Okay.
You're good?
Ready? Looks like I got another one
Pick
there.
that one up. Yep.
Yep. Ready?
Yep.
Last one.
Yep.
So yeah, we've had a couple of issues out of both of these. Nothing major, kind of light stovepipes or failures to go completely into battery, which really is indicative of lack of power. And there can be a few causes of this. Now, complete caveat. It can be the gun, of course. It can be different aspects of the gun. It could be the recoil spring. It could be the feed ramp, the chamber if it's not polished. It can be the springs inside, as I said. It can be hanging up on the fire control group. Both of these are hammer fired. It can be just roughness. For example, with this one especially, the kind of finish it has tends to dry out very quickly, and it really likes to be lubricated. It definitely runs a little better when you lube it up. This one, because it doesn't have a slide, just a bolt inside, not so much. Also, it has a bit of smoother, more consistent finish. But nevertheless, it is possible. Another major thing to consider with these guns are the magazines. This is certainly a factor with the PM-63. These magazines are surplus. We do not know how much they've been used, if they were dropped, beat around, left loaded, unloaded, stored in a good climate, stored in the open. Just because a mag looks good doesn't necessarily mean it's good inside, or vice versa. I've had some mags that look like crap that work awesome. I've had some mags that look brand new that aren't worth a damn. And these are a little tricky too, because it actually uses part of the feed lip as the ejector. So if that's worn down or bent a bit, you're not going to have great ejection. Now with the VZ, if you're getting one in 32, you might run into that. They refurbish the mags, but they are using originals. Now if you get a 380 or Makarov, you're going to get new production mags, but these are these kind of waffle Zeidel type mags, which aren't 100%. Even the original military ones weren't. In fact, this is like the third generation of mags. And if you notice, it's a straight mag, unlike the curved one in the 32. So you always have to make sure you've got good mags. Anyone who has AR-15s, you know how important those are. But AKs as well, FALs as well. So don't overlook your magazines, even if they look good or they are brand new. There are duds out there. And finally, and probably really most importantly, ammunition. Not all ammo is loaded equal. Far, far from it. You have Red Army Standard, you've got Wolf, you've got the Bears, brown and silver, and Makarov. And then in different loadings, hollow point, FMJ, so on and so forth. I've noticed that commercial ammo, as a general rule, tends to be lighter loaded than military ammo. This is very true for, say, 9mm Parabellum, 9mm Luger. In fact, a lot of companies, for example, Beretta, who take their military designs and sell them on the civilian market, have to be mindful of this and sometimes have to put in a lighter recoil spring or cut out parts of the slide internal to lighten the slide up. Since the Scorpion here was always a closed bolt, not a whole lot has to be done, but if you read Checkpoint's website, they advise you to shoot quite warm ammo, especially in 32. But they also have some recommendations in Makarov. As for the Rak, this originally being an open bolt machine gun, they actually had to do quite a bit of changing. They lightened the slide up, and just as importantly, they lightened the recoil spring up. This is a mistake I see some people making with these. You get them being used to handling the machine gun, and you try to pull back the slide, and it feels like the spring is weak. So they'll pull out the spring these come with as a semi-auto, and put in an original military spring. The issue there is you've got a stiff spring on a lightened slide, and you very well might be shooting modern commercial ammo. These actually do need a lightened spring, and this is a common thing for a lot of open to closed bolt conversions. So I advise using the spring that this comes with, along with keeping it well greased on the rails, and also double checking your magazines. think we had the best luck with either Red Army Standard or Bear ammo. I can't recall right now, but there's definitely some that these tend to like more than others. The more warm, and you can feel it in your hands when you're shooting when you get a little bit more of a military loading. That's something else to point out. You ever pick up a Polish P-64 and wonder why the double-action hammer is so heavy? That's because the military ammo for the P-64, along with the PM-63, had extra hard primers, so it would not accidentally become ignited by these racks. So the military ammo this is wanting to shoot was pretty hot with real hard primers. Just the thing. I'm not trying to make excuses for these guns. I'm just pointing out that there are several things to kind of try out. And at the end of the day, you have to realize guns like these aren't really guns you're going to buy for home protection or self-defense. We buy these for historical interest and because they're fun and cool. Typically, Jay and I kind of have a rule of thumb. If we can get through 50 rounds, a box of ammo, with 1, maybe 2 light jams, nothing major, nothing dangerous or scary, just light little jams. With a gun like this, we're okay. Now, we would never accept that for, say, a modern defensive pistol. But considering what these are, historical replicas built from original parts, or just modern production guns being imports, we do give them a little more leeway because I don't want to call them range toys. I think they have much more historical and mechanical interest in that, but they do fill a certain niche that a Glock or a AR-15, even a Wasser, may not. There's other guns for that. As long as these run safely and reasonably reliably, we're pretty dang happy with them. And most importantly, as long as they're fun to shoot. And both of these really are. I remember when the 32s came out a long time ago, and then they announced the Makarovs, and I missed the first run of these, and was really kicking myself because we were moving at the time. I just didn't get a chance to grab one, and I waited like a hawk on Checkpoint's website. And as for the PM-63, this is something that Pioneer Arms, first under IO and then Pioneer USA, have been teasing since really about the same time as these, 2013. And I couldn't believe when they did a very soft release. And to this point, September of 2019, only 2 small batches have come into the USA. Will there be more? Hopefully, but you never know. I just thought a side-by-side comparison would be fun. It's really hot out today, especially for mid-September, so we're not doing a range day. But we had shooting footage for both of these. And with both of these currently available on the market, I thought, why not talk about them? We do like our Comblock guns around here. Well, if you'd like to know more about the history, or see even more shooting footage, check out the individual videos. And if you own either one of these, we would love to hear your own experiences in the comments below. If you could, like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please click on the link and check out the link to our Patreon page. Well, this is Misha, and on behalf of Jay as well, we appreciate you tuning in, and we will catch you very soon next time.